Hey guys, what's up? So I'm here with a Halloween recommendation video. Last year I did one of these. I recommended mainly films for that one, and I figured I'd do it again. This time I'd recommend a few things other than films. I've got four movies here, four horror movie recommendations here, as well as some music and some video games. So I'm going to start it off right off the bat. My first recommendation for you guys is the very lesser known, kind of obscure, kind of comedy slasher from 1991, Scary Movie. Now, Scary Movie is does not have a U.S. DVD release, and I think the VHS is pretty rare and hard to come by. Luckily, somebody has put it on YouTube, so it is currently on YouTube, and if you are interested, then check it out. Scary Movie is a film that is basically about a paranoid young man who believes that there's an escaped lunatic hiding in the neighborhood kind of haunted house, and he thinks that this serial killer is, he thinks that this lunatic is killing people inside this haunted house, and the movie, I watched it last year for my Halloween horror marathon, and I thought it was a very, very funny, interesting, entertaining little low-budget slasher that I would honestly say does not have the audience it deserves, and sadly does not have a US DVD release, so therefore I had to make a bootleg of it. I have a bootleg of it right on my shelf, right there. But it's a very simple film, very simple premise, and I think it really works. The main character is likable. The killer is very creepy and mysterious, always kind of changing costume, changing mask to kind of blend in to whatever is going on in the haunted house, in the specific room of the haunted house. And like I mentioned, this is a film based around Halloween, which is one of the big reasons I'm recommending it, but also because it is a fairly unheard of, overlooked little movie. If you guys find it on YouTube, which it is very easy, all you gotta do is look up Scary Movie 1991 on YouTube and you can find it. If you can find it, I definitely recommend giving it a watch, and I definitely be interested in hearing you guys' thoughts on it. If you guys do actually watch it, and you, or if you've seen it before, I'd definitely like to hear your opinions on the film itself. I personally think it's a pretty solid little underrated, underseen slasher flick. But now it is on to the second recommendation. For the second recommendation, I'm going to recommend Ginger Snaps from the year 2000. Ginger Snaps is a werewolf movie based around Halloween, and most of these are films actually all of these are films based around Halloween, which is one of the big reasons I'm recommending them, but also because I think they're pretty good movies. Ginger Snaps is an interesting movie about two sisters who have very morbid interests, such as taking pictures of themselves with makeup on to make it look like they're dead. They have very morbid interests. They're obsessed with death, and they're outcast in their suburban neighborhood as well as their high school. And then they must deal with the consequences when one of them, the one being Ginger, is bitten by a werewolf and subsequently turns into a werewolf. This film has a pretty decent-sized cult following, and it did get a Blu-ray release from Scream Factory. And I do know that it is a primarily pretty well-known little cult film. I know there are a lot of people out there who haven't gotten a chance to see it yet, which is the main reason I am recommending it to you. The whole movie is on YouTube currently. Again, all you gotta do is look up Ginger Snaps 2000 and it will probably be one of the first results. And that is how I watched the film originally. I covered it on my channel a few years ago. I did a review on it when I was in my senior year of high school, which was almost 2 years ago. But I honestly thought it was a very cool, creepy, kind of funny at times, and definitely it definitely has a bit of gore in there that's really satisfying. Plus, the two main leads, the two who play the sisters, they're both very, very attractive actresses, at least in my opinion. I know one of them would go on to star as Mary in the film by the Silk Sisters, American Mary. American Mary also being a very, very good movie that is another one I would just recommend in general, but not specifically for Halloween. But this is one I think is a must-see vampire movie, not vampire, but werewolf movie, and it's a must-see werewolf movie. It's probably one of my favorite werewolf movies of all time, and that is saying a lot coming from a horror buff like me. I do appreciate werewolf movies. I haven't seen an absolute ton of them, but I can appreciate the genre, and I definitely do have favorites amongst the genre. And honestly, in my humble opinion, Ginger Snaps is a better werewolf movie than The Howling. And don't get me wrong, I like The Howling, but Ginger Snaps I think is a way better, more interesting werewolf movie. But with that out of the way, now we can get on to the third movie recommendation. The third one is the 2004 slasher horror comedy, again based around Halloween, from director Jeff Lieberman. For those of you who don't know, Jeff Lieberman has given us classics like the slasher film Blue Sunshine, which I will admit I have not seen in a long time. I remember not liking it that much, but I will have to rewatch it. As well as giving us the killer worm movie Squirm, and I personally really enjoy Squirm. I think it's about on par with Juan Piquer Simon's Slugs from 1988, but his 2004 movie is a slasher comedy film called Satan's Little Helper. Satan's Little Helper is basically about a young boy who is a fan of this video game called Satan's Little Helper, where you basically play Satan's Little Helper. You play as a demon who helps Satan commit atrocities, and he wants to go as Satan's Little Helper for Halloween. He wants to dress up as the character of Satan's Little Helper for Halloween, and he unknowingly basically becomes a serial killer's partner in crime when this serial killer, who he thinks is his sister's boyfriend, is dressed up as the devil, and this serial killer willingly kind of goes around and kills people, and the kid thinks it's just a game. It is a very fun and I would say genuinely hilarious at times little horror comedy. There are undertones in the film of incest, which is really fucking weird. The main character kid openly admits that he wants to fuck his sister a couple times, or at least marry his sister a couple times in the movie, which is a very weird thing. But I thought it added to the weird kind of humor of the film. The movie overall is not super gory. There's one scene of major gore. Other than that, it is a pretty clean little movie. It's a very funny movie, very underrated, and I'm kind of upset that it does not have a major Blu-ray release yet. I would say that this would be a perfect movie for Scream Factory to pick up, because I feel like it has a cult following, but I feel like it is also a pretty underseen little movie, mainly because the cover art for it makes it look just very clickbait-ish. But it's a good movie, very much worth your while. And again, this is another one that is available on YouTube. The full movie is. It's available to watch for free on YouTube. Again, all you gotta do, look up Satan's Little Helper 2004, and you will probably find it, and it is very much worth the watch. Very good, like I said, good, underseen, underrated little Halloween horror film. Next on the list of recommendations, we have Babysitter Massacre from 2013, from director Henrik Kuto. Henrik Kuto is a fellow Ohioan horror film director, independent filmmaker, and he has quite a big cult following behind him, but his films still have not really grabbed any attention, a lot of major attention, and this is his slasher film from 2013, and it is a film that I primarily think is absolutely just so much fun and entertaining, and it's definitely one of his best films out of what I have seen from him. I do own this movie, in fact. The reason I mentioned that I own it is because I wanted to get it off the shelf to show off something. This was the first Henrik Kuto movie I ever saw, and I actually bought this copy of it when I met him at a convention, and he even autographed the cover for me. I don't think you can really see it, but you can see the silver writing there. It says, "To Cody, 'tis the season, Henrik Couteau." Henrik is a very, very cool, very nice guy. He's very eccentric and very fun to talk to, and pretty knowledgeable when it comes to cult films. But his movie is basically a tribute to 80s slashers, particularly stuff like Slumber Party Massacre and Sorority House Massacre 2, to be specific. It is a film that centers on a group of young women who, when they were young, when they were teenagers, they started a babysitting business, and then one of them disappeared suddenly on Halloween night 7 years ago, and the group of friends kind of fell apart, and they all lost touch with each other. Then years later, they're all basically going their separate ways, and then on Halloween night, somebody's out torturing and killing every single member of this babysitter club, of this group of former babysitters on the anniversary of their friend's disappearance and or death. When I met Henrik and talked to him about it, I had told him that I had heard about it and not seen it, and he sold me a copy of it, and he told me that I wanted to make it live up to the title of Babysitter Massacre. So every about 10 minutes or so, somebody is either being killed or somebody is getting naked. And I cannot sit here and say that that is not 100% true. It is a wholly entertaining movie, and if you have Amazon Prime, it is available to stream instantly on Amazon Prime for free. It is 100% worth the watch, I would personally say. If you do not have Prime, I would highly recommend you either sign up for the trial and check this movie out, as well as check some other stuff out on Prime, like Honky Holocaust, which is a very fun trauma flick that is on Prime. Or you go on Amazon and buy a copy of the movie. Support independent cinema, because this movie is entertaining as all hell. I really like it, and Henrik deserves the money. He has a genuine talent when it comes to filmmaking. Now, when it comes to music, if there's one band I can always recommend any time of the year, it would be the Swedish metal band Ghost. For those of you who don't know, I'm a big fan of the band Ghost. I've been a fan of them for quite a while now, and ever since I first heard their music, I have absolutely been in love with their music. Ghost, as I said, is a Swedish metal band, and the identities of the members themselves are completely unknown, and apparently they changed the lead singer, who is supposed to be a satanic pope. They change the lead singer every few years, just like they do with the actual pope himself. Currently they're on their third Papa Emeritus, so it would be Papa Emeritus 3 currently, although there's a theory that they are all the same person. Basically, Ghost is a very kind of interesting theatrical band, and they're obviously, if you listen to their music and watch their music videos, they're heavily inspired by not just silent films or 70s horror, but horror music, but horror films in general. They're heavily inspired by that. If you watch some of their music videos, you have one, for instance, their music video for their song Secular Haze, which the music video for that one looks like it was recorded with old TV cameras, and that they were performing on like the Ed Sullivan Show in the 60s. It is meant to look like that. If you watch their music video Square Hammer, which is from their most recent EP, Pope Star, you can tell that it is heavily inspired by silent films. If you watch the music video for From the Pinnacle to the Pit, again, silent films and very Metropolis kind of German expressionist inspired imagery in that music video. And of course, if you watch the music video for the song Cerise has a very kind of 70s Carrie, kind of mid 70s kind of Carrie vibe going on with how it looks and feels. Their EP, for instance, If You Have Ghost, the artwork is literally based on Nosferatu, the classic silent film. Their first album, which I can't remember the name of, the artwork is obviously inspired by Salem's Lot. Their second album, Infestessimum, is obviously inspired by Amadeus. And actually, their most recent albums don't really have a lot similarity-wise, but their artwork for their most recent tour, which is the Popestar tour, the artwork for that is heavily inspired by the Vitruvian Man, by Leonardo da Vinci, as well as Metropolis, with the imagery of Maria, the robot from Metropolis. But now on to the specific pieces of music from them that I'm going to recommend. I'm going to solidly recommend their most recent EP, Popestar. It is available digitally on Amazon for $5. $5 for this EP, and it is 100% worth the money. It is made up of mostly covers of songs that sound very gospel, which is kind of Ghost's thing. Their songs are always about Satan, and it is kind of over the top, but even though it is over the top, it doesn't ever not sound creepy or atmospheric or theatrical. And their music is just so good. It's creepy. It's just the perfect music for this time of year. It is the perfect music to play in the background of your party, especially because it is just nothing but creepy organ and like guitar riffs and just deep theatrical atmospheric music. It is beautiful, beautiful music. So I would highly recommend their most recent EP, which was Popestar, which consisted mostly of covers. And I would also highly recommend their most recent album from last year, Meliora, which I think is their best album. It is such a good album that I own it both on CD and vinyl. And I actually own 3 of their albums on vinyl. That is how much of a fan I am of their music. Well, I own If You Have Ghost, their EP, as well as Infestessimum and Meliora on vinyl. But still, their music, I think, is just some of the best metal out there right now, and it's very accessible music. It really isn't hard to get into at all. It's not super heavy, but nor is it pop music. It is just, in my opinion, perfect horror music, because when you think of horror music or horror metal, you think bands like Gwar, or you think kind of heavier kind of bands like shock rock bands like Gwar, or you think Rob Zombie, or you think or you maybe think Marilyn Manson, or the Misfits, or Ghoul. You think of bands like that, heavier bands, but this is a band that isn't super heavy, that is still interesting and theatrical and atmospheric, and still heavily horror-based. I own every single one of their albums and EPs on multiple formats, and they're all very good, but I'm mostly going to recommend their most recent album, Meliora, as well as their recent EP from last month, Popestar. And now we get on to the final part of this recommendation video, and it is video games. Really, I haven't played a lot of video games recently, but if there's one video game I think I could 100% wholly recommend, even though this game's a couple years old and the hype for it has kind of died down, I'm going to go ahead and say Alien Isolation. Whenever I think of video games based on the Alien franchise, you usually get kind of action-adventure games. You have, for example, Alien vs. Predator, which was on Xbox 360 and PS3. You have Alien 3, which was on Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo. You have the arcade game of Alien. You have Alien Extinction. You have games that aren't based on what Alien originally started out as. You have games that are more inspired by Aliens, by the horror action aspect of Aliens, but more inspired by that and less inspired by the original idea of Alien, which was basically a slasher film set in space. It was slow, it was creepy, it was atmospheric. It wasn't entirely action-based. It was based on the simple premise of just being trapped with a monster in a very confined space, and that is what made Alien so creepy originally. It was just a movie about being trapped, again, in a small space, in a space station with an alien, and that's what this game is. You are completely defenseless against this alien. There is no stopping it, and that is what makes the game so creepy. And another thing I really enjoy about the game right now is the fact that it isn't just the alien that is a threat to you. There are also people on this space station who will kill you. There are androids on the space station who, again, are hostile. You have to hide, you have to run, there is no fighting, and you just have to survive. And that is the simple premise of what Alien was originally, and they made it into a game, finally made it into a game that is what Alien is all about originally, what Alien was all about originally. I'm not going to sit here and say that any of the Alien games they made that were action-based weren't good, because they were, but they're just never as fun. They're just never as good. They never captured the spirit of Alien. But with this short little segment right here, I am actually done with this video for now. Anyway, guys, I've got a collection update video coming to you very soon, and maybe a review. Anyway, guys, this is Biscuit Boo Horror Reviews, signing off. Peace.